And by understanding that you have these predispositions, you can take specific action. So remember, some things we want to turn on, some things we want to turn off. If somebody has a predisposition to a certain cancer, well, guess what? By knowing this, you can actually take specific action to make sure that that genetic predisposition doesn't epigenetically turn itself on by lifestyle choices that we're making, including nutrition, including mental and physical health.
Welcome to A Magical Life, Health, Wealth and Weight Loss. I'm your host, Magic BARCLAY, lead practitioner at Holistic Natural Health Australia and #1 best-selling author. In this podcast, I aim to give you practical tips on how to accelerate and sustain your health, increase your financial, spiritual and emotional wealth, and to look at something that haunts many of us needlessly, weight loss. Now, sit back and enjoy, because it is time for you to create and truly discover a magical life. Welcome back to A Magical Life. I'm your host, Magic BARCLAY, and today Len May, the science guy, joins us. He is the MSc CEO and co-founder of Endo-Cannabis Health Incorporated. Len brings more than 25 years of cannabis and genomics experience to Endo-Cannabis Health. He is a pioneer in the medical cannabis industry. Len has been instrumental in shaping the current legislation and culture. He has held past positions as president of the Cannabis Action Network and board member and lifetime member of California Cannabis Association. Len is the current chair of the CBDIA Science Board and is a stakeholder in some of the industry's most iconic brands. His areas of expertise include the workings of the Endo-Cannabinoid system and how DNA and genetic expression play a role in personalized health and wellness, leveraging the revolutionary platform of EndoDNA. As a certified medical cannabis specialist in medicinal genomics, Len May has an in-depth knowledge of genomics, cannabinoids, and terpenes, and their interaction with the endocannabinoid system. As well, he holds a Master's of Medical Cannabis and a certificate in endocannabinoid formulation from the Institute for the Advancement of Integrative Medicine. Oh my goodness, I could keep going, Len, but welcome.
Thank you.
Now, let everyone know why cannabis.
Why cannabis? Well, cannabis is a substance that actually helps us to regulate our own endocannabinoid system. And the reason why cannabis, just like any other substance that we have receptors for, our body's built for cannabis. So I think it starts with understanding what the endocannabinoid system is, and then also how the endocannabinoid system is different for different people, and then why phytocannabinoids from the plant, how they play a role in our own personalized health and wellness. So starting with the endocannabinoid system as a whole, the endocannabinoid system is our primary modulating system. It regulates and modulates all the other systems within our bodies. And it's pretty new. It's been discovered in 1992. So, you have healthcare professionals that don't even know that there is such a system. But it's a super important system because the way that it works is it gets signals from all the other systems within our body, and it sort of sends them like salmon swimming upstream back to the brain through the central nervous system. And then our brain makes a decision which endogenous, meaning within our bodies, which endogenous endocannabinoids, which are really neurochemicals, to be able to excrete. And the overall goal of this system is to maintain balance or homeostasis. So when we have that signaling and it releases your endogenous endocannabinoids, the two endogenous endocannabinoids that it releases are anandamide, and the word anand means bliss in Sanskrit. So this is our bliss hormone, and that's the one that we feel euphoric. It stimulates appetite. It helps with regulating pain and other feelings that we have, also mood, etc. And then the second one is 2-AG. And that one helps to regulate some other systems like our immune system, our digestive system. So it really helps to regulate the systems working together in unison with our other systems to be able to have this whole balance within our bodies. And cannabis is really important because there are some people and some deficiencies in what we naturally produce. We can look at some of them as part of genetic predispositions, and other ones are caused by, lack of consumption of some of those supplements that we actually need within our bodies. So when we consume phytocannabinoids from the cannabis plant, specifically to the major phytocannabinoids in its decarboxylated state. When I mean decarboxylated is when the plant grows, it grows with acid molecules attached to that. So the first thing you do when you grow a plant and it starts to bud, its primary phytocannabinoid is cannabigerol, so CBG. From there, it creates all the other phytocannabinoids, like what we know as THC, CBD, but all of them have an acid molecule, so THC-A, CBD-A, etc. Once the plant is taken down and cured, it starts expressing its essential oils, which are called terpenes, which give it its smell and also work together to produce an effect. So when you heat the plant, it actually drops the acid molecule and converts to, like, for instance, THCA converts delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol. When that happens, we have receptors in our body. So CB1 receptors are mostly located in our brain and central nervous system, and CB2 receptors are in our bodies, in our immune, digestive, other systems. So when that acid molecule drops off, the delta-9 binds to CB1 receptors and actually releases anandamide. And when the same affinity for the CB2 receptor, when we consume CBD, which is missing the acid molecule, it has an affinity for the CB2 receptor, and then it releases 2-AG. So together, those endogenous endocannabinoids actually help to regulate all the different systems within our bodies. And it's truly, truly important to be able to have this plant that comes from nature. So for us to take it to supplement ourselves, what we may be naturally deficient in, which will help our bodies and our brains function better.
Brilliant. So thank you for that overview of how this all works. What with what you do can help to accelerate people's health, not just their physical, but also emotional and spiritual health. Why is medicinal cannabis such an all-rounder?
Everything that we do is a personalized experience. So first of all, people need to understand the way drugs work in general. And drugs are vilified. But what happens is we have activity within our bodies and our brains that are actually responsible for the experience that we have. The drug is only the catalyst. So the reason I bring up cocaine, just to give people an understanding of how it works. So when you consume cocaine, it binds to your dopamine receptors, and it does two things. It blocks the reuptake of the dopamine, squirts about 100 times more dopamine than we naturally produce ourselves. So the dependence is not on the cocaine, which is a vehicle, it's on the dopamine that's being released. So when we are consuming cannabis itself is releasing those endogenous endocannabinoids. And it's extremely important to be able to have the right ratio of cannabinoids and terpenes so somebody can actually bridge that deficiency that they may be naturally prone to. So the reason why EndoCannabis Health was created in the first place is because I had a personalized experience myself. When I was a kid, I would sit in class and the teacher calls on me and I sort of would not pay attention because I had all these windows in my head that were open, sort of these tabs on your computer. And the reason why is because I was diagnosed with ADD. And what was happening is I had depletion of dopamine. So my brain was always looking for that hit of dopamine. And I was put on prescription medication. And some of that worked. I mean, it helped me to focus, but I actually took away any emotion, any feeling from me whatsoever, until I was hanging out with some older kids and they asked me if I wanted to smoke a cigarette. And I was like, yeah, I'm hanging out with older kids smoking cigarettes. Great, let's do it. And they actually filled it with cannabis. I didn't know. But when I went back to class, the windows that were open narrowed and I could focus. And I still had feeling and emotion, all these things. So it became my medicine. And the reason why it's really important to be able to know what works specifically for the individual, because some people have predispositions to possible adverse effects. So I've talked to many people. They said, yeah, cannabis is not for me, especially THC. It creates anxiety, creates stress. Well, first of all, you should know what you're putting in your body. So the cannabis that you're putting in, you should know that it matches with your genetic predispositions and what you're epigenetically, what you're turning on once you're consuming that. So the idea is to be able to use one's DNA to guide somebody through that process. And the way that it works is, we have a buccal swab. You swab the inside your mouth. We have a test called EndoDNA, and then you would send it to our lab, or you can upload existing information from your 23andMe, from your ancestry, et cetera. And then from there, you would get a profile, a report, which is completely de-identified and personalized to you. And what it does, it looks at symptomatic conditions associated with two things: what people use cannabis for and where your genetics play a role. So things like predispositions to anxiety, cognitive function, mood and behavior, pain and nausea, and sleep. So once you understand that you have certain predispositions to something, you may consume the right ratio of cannabinoids and terpenes that can mitigate the possibility of that adverse effect and still give you the therapeutic properties that you need that are personalized to you. And once you've consumed that ratio, the other thing to know is how much to consume. So now that you know this is my ratio of cannabinoids and terpenes, how much should I take? Dosing is very important, and it's based on metabolic function. We all metabolize things differently. And based on your metabolic function, you can see, well, you're a poor metabolizer, or you're a rapid metabolizer, or you're an intermediate metabolizer, or normal metabolizer. So that will guide how much of a phytocannabinoid amount you should be consuming, or actually method of consumption as well. If you're a poor metabolizer, maybe avoid first pass delivery, which is through your liver, and consume something sublingually or through your buccal cavity. So that's the second part of it. The third part of that is drug interaction. When people consume prescription medications and they consume supplements, well, certain phytocannabinoids can interact with those. So we have to understand, and we have a database of over 200 different prescription medication, and they may show you that there's an interaction between a phytocannabinoid and that in that prescription medication. So what do? Don't consume your phytocannabinoid together with your prescription medication. Stagger your consumption. And how long you stagger for depends on what type of metabolism you are. And the real kick to all this is not only is cannabis truly a therapeutic agent that we all should be supplementing with, and the amount and what kind depends on the individual, but also you can measure how well it works. And how you measure how well it works is by the epigenetic expression of when you actually put something in your body, what switches are turned on. And you can measure that through not only patient-reported outcome, but also through biometric feedback. So we have a wearable device like our EndoLink device, or you can integrate with a Fitbit or a Whoop or any other biometric device, and you can actually measure and see how that phytocannabinoid formulation is working for the individual. So an example would be sleep, right? So if somebody has a predisposition to insomnia, or they have a predisposition to bruxism, which is actually grinding your teeth, and there is a correlation, we just finished a study between stress and anxiety and how that expresses itself with quality of sleep. So it's not about sleeping for 8 hours a night for an individual specifically, it's the quality of sleep that you get. And what people sometimes do is they consume a high amount of THC before they go to sleep. And what happens there, their body can be really tired and they can, go to sleep. However, that extra THC can actually stimulate brain activity. And when it's stimulated, they're not going to be able to get the restful sleep. So as they're not getting restful sleep, they're waking up, they may be agitated. and that stress level continues throughout the day. So they continue on this hamster wheel. So by understanding somebody's genetic predisposition, and somebody may have that predisposition of Bruxelles, which is grind your teeth. So the way that it shows up in sleep quality is they grind their teeth and are not getting the restful sleep. So suggesting a formulation that is more personalized to the individual, now we can measure the quality of sleep. How much alpha, how much theta, what is the REM sleep? What is the heart rate variability? What is the blood oxygen level? We can learn from that on how it's working for that individual, and then start using machine learning, which we do, to create better predictive inferences. So now we can have an archetype of individuals that are like this, that have used this type of formulation, that are more efficacious. And that's really, truly precision medicine. And that's really what cannabis is.
Love it. Look, our next standard question is around wealth, and people think it's just finances, but also we're talking personal and emotional wealth. So, Len, from your vast life experience, which we discussed a little off air, what are your top 3 tips to creating wealth?
Well, it depends how you define wealth. For me, wealth is waking up every day healthy, with love and passion, and everything else falls in line. So number one, you have to be physically and mentally healthy. So the number one thing you should do is create rituals for yourself that you can repeat and replicate that'll help you, fill your own cup, so to say. Make sure whatever it is that you do, physical activity, meditation, any other things that you can do to work on you, so you have that good attitude to go throughout the day. The second thing is find something you're passionate about. Whatever that is, find it, look for it. You don't have to settle for something that you may not be connected to. Now, every experience, and I've had lots of different job experiences working for, Big Six Consulting at Price Waterhouse, to being a commercial real estate broker, but having a passion for the therapeutic properties of plant, having all those experiences in my life helped me to run my business because I had those experiences. Maybe that wasn't what I was meant to do, but those are all little breadcrumbs that you take with you that help you be successful in any business venture that you're passionate about. And the third thing is give back, because at the end of the day, your passion, or that's my tip and my passion, it has to be something that you're able to share with others. And because you're able to work on yourself, your physical, your emotional, your mental well-being, you're able to create a passion for what it is that you do. Now it's time to help other people with that passion. So for us, and for me specifically, helping people, I can tell you a lot of different examples, helping people that had 6 months to live with cancer coming to us and living for 6 years and living good lives when everybody else, wouldn't be able to, gave up on them, basically. That's the purpose. So doing something you're passionate about and then being able to give back to others that they can actually help spread that information. Those are probably the 3 top tips that I would give somebody for being wealthy.
Terrific tips. And look, our final standard question is around weight loss. Many people battle their weight, and it can be quite a lifelong journey. We know that stress is a key factor in weight issues. So, have you ever battled your weight? If so, how did you win the war? And what can medicinal cannabis do to help us on our weight loss journey?
It's such a wonderful question. I'm not sure if I battled weight per se, but I'll give you a couple examples. So the first one being is during lockdown, my daughter and I decided that we're going to get gelato because, whatever, we're sitting at home. I'm not exercising as much. So I started getting gelato and started feeling myself getting puffy after a couple months. So I made a decision. First of all, I'm going to give up sugar. And that was the main thing. Once once I was able to give up sugar itself, and there is a mindset, sugar is extremely, extremely addictive. So being able to give up sugar and then things that convert into sugar, like simple carbohydrates, the breads and pastas and rice, I found my body actually shrinking. And this is without much exercise. Then from there, I started connecting myself to what it is that really I like to do for physical activity. So, and one of them is hiking. So I started discovering hiking. So now, because I'm in nature and I'm hiking and I'm also eating properly, my body started to transform. But the other thing that you brought up in stress, so I had a physical, when I turned 50, I had this major physical, which I really don't go to doctors that much, but I was like, all right, let me go check this out. So I really get stressed out when it comes to giving blood, and to a point where, even when I'm giving blood, and I have tattoos and needles are not really my fear, but it's just the blood exiting my body, or for some reason, it really stresses me out. So I've given my blood test, and when I went through my results with the doctor, my glucose level was a little higher than normal for me. And she's saying, well, I don't know. I think you're healthy. Doesn't seem to be an issue, but if you really want, wear a glucose monitor. So I did for several weeks. And this is what I found out. First of all, because of the stress level, because of all the cortisol that was pumped into my bloodstream, it actually elevated my glucose level. So that stress actually created all this extra, blood sugar. And that is a big culprit to weight. So you absolutely hit the nail on the head. Stress, anxiety, that actually reduces your ability for your digestive system to function properly, because it's actually converting glucose to fat and storing it as that for a rainy day. So by wearing my glucose monitor, I could see which foods actually spike glucose. And the foods that I really thought were spiking glucose weren't really that. I had like a matcha latte from a Starbucks, and that spiked my glucose. I'm like, that's not supposed to have sugar in it. And then I had a Thai dish, and the sauce probably had so much, corn syrup or something like that actually spiked my blood glucose level. So understanding what it is that you can and cannot eat also is a personalized experience. And by the way, the final thing on that I want to say is our test looks at the full endocannabinoid system, and you have genetic predispositions to metabolism. So some people don't metabolize certain things correctly. And if you know this about yourself, and some people are predisposed to weight gain and things of that nature. So understanding your own body and understanding what the possibilities are with your own body can help you make smart decisions about your own health and wellness and nutrition.
We've covered a lot already just with our chat so far, but what is something that we haven't covered that you feel the listeners need to hear?
Just this two things about genetics in general. So one of the things that people have told us before is, I don't feel like giving them my DNA. Maybe somebody will clone me one day. Maybe farmer will get my information. So the first thing that I want to say is that all the information, we're HIPAA, GDPR compliant, but all the information that we gather is de-identified. So we are gathering data, and data is important for us to be able to communicate back to, the medical community, the cannabis community, but it's not about Len May's personal data that we care about. We care about 1,000 people that have my profile, that have my genetic profile, that have taken a certain formulation and have shown efficacy, because that helps us communicate back and say, hey, these terpene profiles work better, so cultivate these or formulate these. So it's very, very important to know. And the other thing is that why DNA is important to begin with. And the way that I actually look at this is without your DNA, you sort of drive your car without a GPS. And your GPS tells you that this road over here may have an accident, may have some road construction, may have a broken down vehicle. So now that you know this, you can make smart decisions by avoiding those potholes, avoiding that road, maybe taking another road. So by having your DNA test and your full DNA test with everything, you'll know sort of the sharp corners to avoid. And then the other thing that's really important is by understanding that you can then control, you can take better action over yourself by making the decisions for epigenetic expression. And I'll explain what this means. So 99.9% of us are identical. It's that 0.1% that makes the biggest difference. So when we get our DNA from our parents, and 50% from our mother, 50% from our father, once we have this DNA, it's basically an encoding genetic message that's in our DNA. Some of those, think of it as like a bunch of on-off switches. Some of those switches are already turned on. So like predispositions, or like for our hair color, our eye color, our skin color. But some of them encoding is just that. And the messenger RNA, what we do with our life, our lifestyle. So our mental health, our physical health, what our nutrition is, how we conduct ourselves on a daily basis, it can actually help trigger, turn on those switches or turn off those switches. And that's the epigenetic expression of which proteins to be able to create. Why this is important is because if we know we have a predisposition, let's say the opioid dependence, we know this about ourselves. So, and we can communicate with our doctor. We're empowered with information with a healthcare professional to say, I have a genetic predisposition to opioid dependence. Maybe I should avoid opioids altogether or minimize the amount because I have a predisposition for that, and look at phytocannabinoids as an alternative. There's also predisposition to alcohol dependence, etc. And by understanding that you have these predispositions, you can take specific action. So remember, some things we want to turn on, some things we want to turn off. If somebody has a predisposition to a certain cancer, well, guess what? By knowing this, you can actually take specific action to make sure that that genetic predisposition doesn't epigenetically turn itself on by lifestyle choices that we're making, including nutrition, including mental and physical health.
Great. Now, before I let you go, Len, we love freebies. So what can you offer the listeners and where can they find it?
So we can offer the listeners a discount code of any product within EndoDNA.com. So you can use the code LEN, LEN 25, and I'll give you a 25% discount of any single product that is within the EndoDNA catalog.
Terrific. Thank you so much for joining us. I've really enjoyed our chat. And, you know, I really urge everyone to look into the benefits of medicinal cannabis and really take the stigma out of it, because it is just such an amazing gift of nature that has just been demonized. And, you know, really, listeners, open your minds and really look into this for your health. Len, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
And listeners, thank you for your time. Go forth and create your magical life. Thanks for listening today. Please subscribe to hear future episodes, leave a review, and share this podcast. Drop us a line at A Magical Life Podcast on Facebook and let me know what you would like to know more about. You can find us on Instagram at Holistic Natural Health, that's holistic with a W, or at www.holisticnaturalhealth.com.au. That's where you'll access all sorts of articles, freebies, and more.